Hello, hello, beautiful people. Mi gente bella. Welcome to another edition of Santana Says, where we talk about everything from roadblocks to relationships, everything in between, and the overall journey of life. I am excited, as always, to bring you another edition of the show. And I'm also very excited when it's a chance to be able to regroup and talk about how things have been going, because I've been bringing y'all. We just wrapped up a series, Take Me to School, where I was put on by different people and learned some great things. And I was excited because they definitely did give us some great lessons. And it's just cool because, it's education season. It is time. It's school. But if you're like me, it's also the time where you're really feeling the weight of the school year, and in general, people that aren't even in the school system, I'm sure you're just feeling the weight of the year. It's been a year. It's been some time, and also this month, of course, was a very interesting one for many reasons. I'll dog your ass on why, but obviously knowing that it's the ending of November and we are approaching December, that means that we just endured, this year in particular, we endured an election year, so it's some interesting times that we are living in. But it's also the brink of the holidays. And so what I love is that there are opportunities for that to be a positive experience, but I know that that can also be a very difficult one. And so, of course, I would be remiss if I don't always make sure that I, shed light on that and highlight that, but also just recognize that that's just something that is taking place. For those who can also see me, I'm also wearing the Santana Says shirt because we have celebrated another year. So it is now officially 2 years, which is crazy to even say that Santana Says has already been around for that long. So I'm excited. In this time, we've been able to do a lot. And of course, thanks to amazing teams and people, some of which you got to meet, like Watts himself, we've been able to take it to new heights. So I'm glad that we are now part of a whole new network, the Revolt Podcast Network, but also that we are just continuing to do new and great things. I'm also clearly noticing that there must be people that's finding the show in different places, because I'm even getting emails from people that want to be guests on the show that aren't anywhere near Ohio. So obviously it must be reaching different places, different people. So I'm excited. I'm glad y'all are reaching out. But I'm also really looking forward to more interaction on the content side. So if there are also folks that, resonate with what we are talking about, want to see different topics that we have not touched on, want to explore things more deeply, I'm open to that. So, you all can feel free to reach out as well and let me know how y'all see things going. But it's definitely the time where I love to talk about the 2 Gs. So it's definitely gratitude season, where it's a good time for us to reflect on what are the things we are grateful for? What are we happy that we were able to accomplish? What's on the horizon and all these great things? But it's also a time where, for a lot of people, the other G, grief, gets activated around this time. And I know that what was incredible, literally in the span of maybe 1 and 2 days, I knew one person who was, I have that mental health group that I told you I started, and it's awesome. It's a cool support space. We just go in there and talk about mental health things. I'm excited though, because it's changing. There's new people that have been added. And of course, when you got new energy, in a group, you get to have new topics and things that you can discuss, but it's also new synergy that gets formed and new ideas that get created. So I'm excited. They want to do all different things than the group last year, and I'm here for it because that's why I made it. I just want to have more chances to talk about it, but also more chances to just relax. When we talk about mental health, yes, it is it's a great topic to explore, but a big piece of it, if you are a fan of mental health, is that what are we doing to protect your mental health? What are we doing to foster healthier opportunities and healthier forms of release? And how are we just having fun? Because at the end of the day, if we're stressed out all the time and we are anxious about all these things that are taking place, then that is not us really cultivating a positive experience around mental health, right? That just means that unfortunately we're making it worse. So what can we do to actually soften that and make it better? And so that's been happening. But that group, there was actually a member who could not attend because she was attending a funeral that same evening that the meeting was taking place, of a teenager who unfortunately passed away due to a car accident. So the parents had no idea that that was even going to take place. Their lives literally changed in an instant. And thinking that your day, you start off your day in one way and then it can change in a matter of seconds. It's just, there's nothing that can ever prepare you when these kind of things do take place. And it's just there is absolutely nothing, there's no guide, right? That you can possibly follow when something shatters your world like that. And so that's why it's and now, unfortunately, knowing the timing of that, you're literally entering a holiday season. And I'm sure that family they have no capacity right now to even think about or like formulate any thoughts around the Thanksgiving or Christmas or any holiday period, right? Any holiday season, they're not even able to think about that because of course their minds, are with this. And literally within like 24 hours of that, I had a friend of mine who had a woman who she just was very, very close to, who unfortunately succumbed to her battle with breast cancer. And so she had been taking, getting a lot of treatments, was really trying to, like, had really fought a really good fight. And just unfortunately, it's just these are those moments where it's like, I wish these kind of conditions did not exist. I really wish they didn't and like they didn't plague us. But of course, I can't say that they don't, and we know that they're those harsh realities that we know they're there, but it doesn't make it any easier, when these things happen. And it's just like these are people that we wish we could hold on to forever. I know I felt that way when I lost my grandmother. I knew it was coming. Like she had lived a full life, but it still hurts. It still hurts when you know that somebody that meant so much to you passed away. And my sister-in-law especially too, she actually lost her sister. And so it's like literally was within that same time. So I was like, wow, how is there all these losses happening? And what's crazy is that's just for me. But it's like these kind of things take place all the time, right? And like sometimes when it does touch us, we talk about it. But then there's the rest of the time where we don't always, and we don't even realize that some people, that's the kind of news that they are having to confront. And they didn't ask for it either. They didn't necessarily want that. They didn't want that to be the conversation that they now had to entertain, or a conversation that they had to be a part of. But unfortunately, it's just the way their life has changed because of it. And so it's like, it's in these moments, I feel like we need to, of course, humanize those situations and remember like how normal and unfortunately how common they are. But it's also in those times that we really need to check in on our community. And I feel like I want to make sure that we're doing that, that we are checking in on one another with people that have losses like those, right? That we can see. But of course, with people that are experiencing losses that we don't see and we may not know. And they may be facing a lot of things as well. And, if we don't check in and see what's going on, we might not know. And if you're the person that's going through that, if you don't tell anyone, of course nobody may be aware of what it is that you're experiencing, but they may want to assist. And what I loved about when I had Stephanie on the show, she was the second person in our Take Me to School, and she reminded us how much like a lot of people do want to help. They do have that desire is always there, but if individuals don't have the resources and they don't know how to help, it really does keep a lot of people from doing so. And so a lot of people will see that, and a lot of people are afraid. We are living in fear. Fear is a topic I've been talking a lot with my clients because there's a lot of things that we might cultivate fear around, right? Like we're always afraid when there's something that's unknown, right? When we're starting something new, when it's something we've never tried, it could be any of those things. But there are a lot of people right now, for many different reasons, that do feel fear, and they are afraid. And I absolutely want to give voice to those people, and I want to let it be known that you are not, if you are also feeling those things, know that you are not alone in that, because there are a lot of us who are afraid of what is to come, especially because it's something outside of our control. There are a lot of things that are happening in the world right now, and we don't have necessarily control of those things. And I think that's why too, I love when I've been following a lot of individuals for a while, but I especially want to set them out, especially at this time, where they want to do a lot of things to radicalize and to decolonize how therapy and those kind of things are set up. And I'm such a fan of that. I have absolutely seen individuals who shoot down the idea of therapy and those things because they feel like a lot of therapists, they just tend to perpetuate a lot of the thoughts that already exist in our country and in our world. And they force you to have to like navigate those things without really recognizing that they exist. Me, on the other hand, I don't like doing that. I love when I have clients who come to me and let me know, about their background, what it is they're facing, and the prejudice that they have experienced, and how they sometimes have to put masks on, in different places. They cannot always show up authentically, but also how that has really influenced the emotions that they carry. Because yeah, of course, it's one thing. I always talk about emotions on this show, and like how, what just normal experiences, like how you may react to those, like when it comes to conflict and in relationships and those things. But there's also emotions that are unique to individuals that are facing different things, especially when we're talking about intersectionality, when we're talking about people of color, when we're talking about people from marginalized spaces. And yes, I absolutely feel like that's a different type. Like those are emotions that some people never have to worry about. Those are emotions that a lot of us do feel very strongly. And I feel like we are doing an incredible disservice when no, we don't recognize those things. And I do think that there are some therapists that are not individuals of color, some of which have done the work to make sure that they can show up for clients of that nature, but there are a lot that don't. And I don't even know that they are doing it intentionally, but I just feel like it's missed because they may not even see it as an area of importance, like to really, talk about diverse issues or to talk about a person who has different identities. You best believe that's something that we got to discuss. We got to, because it affects how they show up in the world. It affects how they see the world, and it affects how they are impacted by what is taking place in the world, and their space in it. And so, of course, we can't. If that's why I wanted to make sure that I entered. And I love seeing whenever I see more people that want to enter these spaces. And again, not just as therapists. I know there's also a lot of individuals who do life coaching. There are individuals, again, who are in the service industry who provide incredible counseling services to people because they get to touch them at very vulnerable moments. And they spend a lot of time with people. And those people during that time share a lot about themselves. And that's why that's something that I want to make sure that we're definitely doing a lot of. And I know that, again, those individuals who are feeling a lot of things right now, and if you're feeling heavy, I do see you. And I do hear you, and I feel like that's why during this time you got to seek out, whoever can provide support for you and whatever that support looks like. I also know that I have some clients who, when I ask them so because everything is feeling heavy, what are you doing to make yourself feel better? And to be honest, some do know, but there are some they're like, I really don't know yet. Like, I don't know what is the thing that makes me feel better. I'm not sure exactly what brings me like true pleasure and true joy, like in the world, and what are the things where I don't have to feel like I'm actually doing work, and for once I'm just like enjoying myself. And I really do want to make sure that we are taking time to do that. And if you do know what that thing is and you haven't done it, y'all, you know it's time. You definitely deserve to like do that. And I also want to make sure that I'm telling everybody it is the season where a lot of us tend to start to isolate a lot more. It is getting colder. For those of us who experience that, I know some people may be listening from places where you don't experience cold, so that's great. I like need to go with you. But for a lot of us, this is the time where we start to like close ourselves in more, right? And we retreat. And for some of us, that's good because we're like, oh, like it's hibernation season. We need to like regroup and rebalance. But for some of us, we know that that can be detrimental because it means that you are, you're closing yourself up. You're not talking to as many people as much as you used to. And you may be succumbing essentially to the weight of what is going on. And it's those people that I want to make sure I'm talking to, and that I don't want you to lean into that too much to the point where it makes it hard to come out of it, because that becomes your new normal and that becomes your new reality. And even with fears are normal. We know that like being afraid of things, being afraid of what we don't know, and all the things I mentioned before, that part is normal. But living in a state of fear and letting that dictate your actions, that is where that also can be problematic. And just like on the other side of anger as well, I know I've discussed with the anger part, but fear I want to make sure I put a special focus on, because not only has that come up, it's on both sides. So I've definitely seen that there are a lot of marginalized folks, many of which who are afraid right now, and some of them are wanting not only to retreat, some people are actually wanting to run away. Right now it's like a lot of people we don't even want to be around. We don't even know what's happening. I want no parts. I want to be as far away from the things that are taking place right now as possible. But there are also a lot of people there are a lot of conservative folks that are coming out of the woodwork that are showing that they also have fears. And in an effort to protect themselves, they're seeing a lot of other individuals as threats who really aren't. And they're creating a lot of opposition with individuals who they do have a lot of commonalities with, but they are convinced that those other individuals are going to cause harm to them. And they don't realize the harm that they are now causing in the process. We are seeing a lot of movements being formed. We're seeing a lot of people come out of the shadows who are emboldened and very like confident and feeling empowered right now because of different individuals in power. And they have no idea the impact and the ripple effect that now has. But some of them are ultimately driven by their own fears as well. Like, well, I just need to make sure, I just don't want too many things to change. There's too many liberal politics that are going to change my world too much. And it's just, there's a lot of, at the end of the day, you're just afraid of, new changes. It might just be that you're just afraid of like going against whatever, like morals and principles that you have and values. And it's like, yes, I do want you to protect you. don't want that to cause you to cause harm to anyone else. And for those who are protecting themselves and doing the best they can with that, I want you to do that in a way that is balanced and that really does help you, but that doesn't keep you from, as you know, other people that can also assist you and can be there with you. And so I just want to make sure, you know what I mean, that that was at least said and that that was mentioned, and that I know it's something that's definitely taking place, like I said, given the fact that, you know, where we are in our world right now. But the other thing is, I have great friends who put me on. And so, like, I know that there's been other media outlets, right? There's been plenty who have dedicated, you know, time to this documentary that came out. But of course, as somebody that loves talking about violence prevention, and as somebody that loves talking about, like, how we can formulate more healthy relationships and have more conversations around the things that take place in our world, I did watch the documentary, Megan Thee Stallion's documentary. So I don't know if you have not watched it, then I mean, it's up to you. You know, whether I encourage it, but it's a documentary, so it's kind of hard to spoil it. Essentially, it was her life, but all the things that I've already talked about definitely get summed up there, and it was definitely an incredible thing to watch. Another thing that's on my list is It Ends With Us. I actually am one that have not seen it yet, but it's definitely a topic I've talked about with several clients of mine as well. But the documentary with Meg, it was definitely a very powerful one. It was definitely a very great one, but also because Meg is already, you know, Megan herself, and I love that in here we finally got to refer to her as Megan Pete, because that is the thing. If y'all recall, I had an episode with Alana Bell, and we were on here talking about how sometimes we idolize celebrities in a way where we forget that celebrities are people. They really are, but you know, we've gotten to this point where we idolize them so much that we act like they're without flaws, you know, and like they're not able to create, you know, commit their own mistakes, and that they're not living lives just like we are. They just are doing it on a way bigger platform, you know what I mean, and with a lot more eyes on them, but they're definitely people. And I love that we got to get introduced to Megan Pete. You know, we got to see a bit of her life, but I had no idea, y'all. I don't know if y'all was like me, where y'all was learning some new things, but all that loss, that was a lot of loss that she experienced. Like, literally starting with her relationship with her father, and knowing that, you know, she already had moments in her life where she wasn't able to be with him because there were times where he was in prison, but then losing him, you know, before she had her relationship with her mom, and it actually being a positive one, right? Because we don't always hear that. We don't always hear about the positive relationships with fathers. And this was a father who had, you know, he's not a perfect father. He had, you know, he had been locked up, he had his records, all these things, but she loved that man. Like, she had an incredible relationship with him. So this isn't, you know, one of those like women's, you know, scorned, or like who was upset, you know, at men because of the issue she had with her dad. No, she loved her dad. You know, she had a great relationship with him. And I love to hear that, because sometimes we don't always get a chance. Like, I myself am one of them, right? Like, I didn't have a great relationship with my father. I didn't grow up as a result, like, hating all men because of that, but I did have issues understanding what healthy relationship looked like because of that, because it was a gap. It was a gap that was there, and my mom did the best she could, right, to educate me as much as she could. But she's not a guy. At the end of the day, she's not a male figure, and she wasn't gonna be able to feel that, you know, completely. And I'm glad she didn't necessarily try to, but it's just that there was only so much she was going to be able to do. And so I love her for everything that she did, but it was just, you know, I always did grow up, you know, like, of course, like with that absence and like feeling that. And so she unfortunately was forced when she lost her father to, you know, experience that. But she did have an incredible, I mean, beautiful relationship with her mother. Like, her mother, we hear a lot too about the celebrities with the momagers, you know what I mean? With the moms choosing to manage their careers, or like really infiltrating the space, being like helicopter parents. Like, some of them aren't doing it for the best reasons. Some of the celebrity parents do it because they really want to have a close monitoring, you know, on what's going on. We also know, like, Rihanna's father actually tried to have like a whole, you know, he tried to sue his own daughter over their last name because he felt like he had rights to an empire that she built. Like, so it's incredible. The parents don't always have the best intentions, and some of them are actually looking out for themselves. And even though they should be celebrating their kids for making it, and like sharing in that success, some of them actually tried to take over it, you know what I mean, or bring it, you know, like, to take it on for themselves. Like, so that can happen. But thankfully with Megan, that did not occur. Like, she loved her mother. They had a great relationship, and mom looked out. Like, she had all these great like advice and, you know, like tidbits and like great pieces of advice to share, and I loved it. I loved seeing it. And the thing is, that woman was an artist too. So like y'all have heard, you know what I mean? Some of us are in the presence of some great creatives who were cultivated by some amazing parents, you know what I mean, who also had great talents and shared them. I would like to say too that in my case, my mom wasn't necessarily like a creative, but I always get made fun of for this like speed with which I talk. And it's funny because if people meet my mother, like they would know. Like she's just this like short, she's also a short little Puerto Rican woman who talks really fast with her hands like I do. And she got too much energy for her own body. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't fit. Like the amount of energy that woman has is larger than herself. And so like I think it's a great quality that she passed down to me, and that like I'm like the best parts of her, you know what I mean, in that. And that's how I feel about like my own kids. But definitely with Megan's mom, like man, she was probably a colder rapper than she was. You know what I'm saying? She would like lyrically, like so talented, did all these great things, and she like and was like confident with it. You know what I'm saying? Her delivery was in a way where it was like cutthroat, like she take no prisoners. Like she was just, she commanded that kind of presence. And so she made sure that Megan showed up that way too, that she would deliver her things very confidently, but she never tried to steer Megan away from the way she wanted to show up in the world. And so Megan from the beginning, I'm sure stirred up and still is, right? Stirring up a lot of controversy. Why? Because she's a confident woman, but she is sexual in nature. And at the end of the day, whenever that happens, that always creates controversy amongst folks. We don't ever see everybody on one accord, right? With that, like the minute somebody is sexual, it puts you in a category from the jump that's like, okay, well, you like those things. Then that means that you are about that lifestyle. Like you like being able to like present that, and you participate in things that are sexual. Like so whether you are or not, like people just see that in general. And from the beginning, yes, Megan did, curb. She knew, she had a market, of course, and she had songs where she said that. I do love that behind that, she was always saying things like your body, your choice. She was saying women should be confident, should be, and should really love who they are, And I love that was always a message behind all of the things that we were seeing. But a lot of people find it very difficult to see that because at the end of the day, she ain't got no clothes on. You know what I'm saying? She got as little clothes on as possible. She's showing her body, like she's doing, too many things. And I just feel, it's hard for us to like see outside of that. And I was especially fascinated by was that I feel like she owned that in the best way possible. To be honest, I was kind of like, yo, I need to take notes. Like she does this in a way that like, I don't necessarily present that way, but it's like, I wouldn't mind doing it. It's just that it's just not, like in my, strength. Like the way that she owns it in a way that is unique to her and it's authentic to her. She ain't trying, when she comes out there, like Megan, when she comes out, like we know it's her, you know what I'm saying? But we know she's not trying. Like this is effortlessly part of her identity, and it's just the woman that she is. And she tall, like she literally commands a presence with the energy, but on top of that, she really does have like the height and all of these things to match, so she just really like is someone that commands in general. But over the course of it, we definitely saw that a lot of people really like glamorize, like they do with a lot of celebrities, her lifestyle. And she ended up befriending some people, and it was in the midst of her grief, y'all. And I feel like that grief message was so loud. It was such a big, powerful part of her story. It's just like, at the end of the day, this was somebody that was trying to deal with loss and had nobody to help her with that. You know what I mean? Nobody was saying like, all right, well, let's slow down because, your mom did just like pass away. Because eventually, for those who don't know, but her mom does pass away, right? And so like she is having to lead a career, you know what I mean, and take off and do all these things, but she does not have her main cheerleader here with her anymore. The lady that knew her, that saw her, that never tried to change her, who just wanted her to grow. The woman that just wanted her to progress, to like take this whole like, this world by storm and be able to be one of the newest, lyricists and rappers and be able to do that as a woman, you know what I'm saying? And as a black woman, she wanted her to do that. She wanted her baby to shine at the end of the day. All you saw her mother doing was front row to everything. She was in her ear about everything, but always in the best way. And Megan loved it. You know what I'm saying? That was something that she actually wanted to have. And there's nobody on your team is ever going to replace that, right? Like you can have people that push you, you know what I'm saying, that challenge you, but like anybody like the one that actually gave birth to you, you know what I'm saying? The one that was there from the beginning, who only wants the best for you, you can't replace like a love like that. You can't, there's no way you could like replicate it. It's like, it's one of a kind. And she felt that every day. I'm sure she still does, because like a lot of us that know, like I just mentioned, the people that I just mentioned at the beginning who are facing grief, there is no time limit. We can't be like, yo, you should be good by now. Like it's been 2 years, you straight. Like you should, like that should no longer be a conversation. Absolutely not. If they want to talk about it, let them talk about it. Because none of us are ready to like lose people. Like, and it's never easy for us to deal with those losses every day, and to know that we got to live our lives without the person witnessing any of that. Yes, of course, we can like still feel them, you know what I mean, in different presence, and we can have them, you know, a part of our lives, but to never hold them again and to never have a conversation with them again, that is not, there's nothing like that. And we can't tell people to turn that off. You know, and we can't tell people like when it is that they can no longer deal with it. We can help them manage it better for sure. You know, we could be part of their support systems, absolutely. But to force them to no longer think about it or not recognize it is not something that we should ever do. And that part is not support. That's what support does not look like, right? And it's just like, we got to make sure. But she was dealing with that in a way that I like literally was so moved by. And I was just like, I don't even know how this girl was doing it, like how she was still getting up, how she was still putting on. And I know that you could tell the performances in some ways were therapeutic for her, but a lot of times it was hard to get out there, you know, and know that she was doing that. And it started to take its toll. And you saw mental health on such a big platform in such a big way because she definitely talked about that on multiple occasions. She felt the sense of overwhelm. She started to feel a lot of times where like she couldn't really get her thoughts straight, you know, like me. And sometimes she almost, you know, like a lot of people too feel like they're living like out of body experiences. Like you living almost like you live in somebody else's life, but it's really yours, you know. But when your body and when your mind gets too overwhelmed, you do that. Depersonalization is something that a lot of people experience. We will sometimes come out of our own bodies and it looks like we are witnessing somebody else's life takes place, even though it's ours. And that's the brain telling us, okay, look, I had enough. This is a lot. Like, and I don't know how else to deal with this. So the only way I can see fit is that I'm going to go ahead and separate from what is happening and then, you know, help you to better process what is going on. Because right now I'm at my limit and there's no other way. And I can't shut you off, right, completely. You know, even though some people also end up in a state where that's what they feel like, yo, I can't move at all and I can't do anything. But if that does not happen, then your brain will do other things to help you out. And that's one of them where you'll feel like you're literally outside of yourself. And so a lot of those things were taking place. But the other one, oh, that was incredible to me was the Tory Lanez situation, y'all. Like knowing that she was befriending people at a time that she was experiencing her loss. So she was trying to form somewhat of a supportive network. But to be honest, she wasn't being intentional with it. Like she was just hurting. She was hurting. She was, you know, fighting through what was going on. And she was, you know, like around whoever was around her is who she was around as well. You know, and so like, and at the time she did think that they thought well of her, right? She thought people were like being supportive, but they were, you know, and some people really were not, didn't think well of her. And these things happen way too often with celebrities too. I hate when they get taken advantage. I hate when anybody gets taken advantage of, you know what I'm saying? But especially our favorites, right? We'd be like, dang, like, why did that happen to you? And like, why are there still people in the world that want to like take advantage of people? Like, why can't we just be trying to help each other win all the time? Like, why do we always got to be so competitive? But we live in a country that tells us to compete every day. And we are living in a country where they're like, yes, if you have to step on somebody else to get to where you're at, like that's okay. Like as long as you win though, you know what I'm saying? Just make sure you win and just make sure that there's some gain, you know, or like that you at least got something out of it. Some money, something, some kind of benefit. And it's just like that breeds such horrible hostility amongst folks and it like horrible values. And people think that it's okay because they're getting ahead and they're not thinking about like who they're hurting in the process. And she was around people that were like that, but she was definitely around a person that ended up literally assaulting her, but at one point absolutely shot her, right? And so like we heard this. And then what's crazy is in the documentary, it felt so new to me because it's like I had heard it in the media. You know what I'm saying? I had heard, you know, the ways that it was like not necessarily just watered down, but like, you know, it'll be a topic one day and then another day it wasn't as important, right? Like just like many things that occur in our world. Like sometimes we're like, yeah, this is front page news and we should like really lean into this. And then other times we act like, you know, it's something that like whatever. It was, I mean, it happened yesterday. Like, why do we gonna still talk about it today? Absolutely not. But this woman was shot. And at the end of the day, she was. And again, it's not like it's a milestone, right? Like, oh, I remember the day I was shot or I remember the day that I lost my mom. No, these are not things that normally happen to everybody. You know, they're not things that like we all encounter and at some point like we experience. And so, you know, let's all reflect on like that event. No, these are things that should never have to happen. These are things that none of us should necessarily have to like develop experiences around, but they do occur. They do occur. And when they occur, they impact us significantly. And if you are telling me that this girl was still was still dealing with the losses that she had already experienced, especially her mother, because that was the most recent one, and then in the midst of her grief, she gets shot at by somebody that she thought was like somebody that she cared about. You ain't gonna tell me that ain't gonna send somebody, you know what I mean? Like even like the normalest of persons, like, like completely astray. Yeah, I don't care. There is no possible strength that could like protect you completely from those kind of events taking place. We're not built like that. We're not built with like, yes, we do have our suits of armor, right? But it's like ones that we have, that we carry, that we put on when we can, but they're ones, if unless we put them on, right, they don't necessarily really exist. And we weren't built with them like naturally. And so we have to do whatever we can to like arm ourselves and protect ourselves. But in general, most of the time we're vulnerable out here, y'all. Like there's anything can touch us, can harm us, unless we're in a situation where we can prevent it, right? Or we could try to not do that. But most of the time we are out here. We are out here, we're exposed. We are exposed as human beings. You know what I mean? And I think, yes, there's a lot of things that help us and equip us, but most of the time we don't have, protections in place. And she showed us that. She really showed us that, and she showed us that that did happen, but then she walked us through what it actually looked like after that, and the fact that after this had happened to her, not only did her life, of course, shatter because she's literally like, how do I even put together what occurred? But it was the ridicule that she got from him, from him, and from so many other people. And how many times have we seen that? How many times have we seen that somebody, in the midst of them deserving our support, and in the midst of them deserving for us to like, at best, right? Like even if we don't agree with the person, their ideologies or anything, human to human, just to be like, well, you know what, dang, I do see the fact that you had a loss, and I do see the fact that you shouldn't have had this happen to you. You know what I mean? You shouldn't have been shot at. Like somebody shouldn't have tried to end your life or point a weapon at you that can end your life, and that weapon actually reach you. No, those things shouldn't have happened. We could have at least said that. We could have at least had some acknowledgement of that part. But a lot of the people that were providing ridicule to her went right past that and were like, well, no, I mean, but you are who you are. You know what I mean? You do what you do. You show up the way you do, especially, sexually and very provocatively, because at the end of the day, that's also what a lot of people like were stuck on. And as a result, it was almost like most people felt like she deserved. She either deserved what was happening to her or she doesn't deserve for us to give her any support for what's happening to her. It's one or the other. And so a lot of us felt that way, especially because this is the part that I appreciated that it was discussed, was the lie part. And so like, was it revealed that she had had sex with the person that shot her, Tory Lanez? Yes, she did. Like, did that actually come out that like that did occur? Absolutely. And like, was there a point in time where she denied it? You best believe it. But the thing is, when I heard it, this went back to me for the conversations that I've been trying to have with folks about how she denied it in the moment, absolutely, but it wasn't like just because she was, because at the end of the day, she did get shot. Like that also got proven. So the thing is, like, this did occur. This was an actual act that happened, and this man did go on after it happened, acting like he was invincible, untouchable, and he did ridicule her. He literally had a video where he was like sawing off like a horse leg. Like he was literally trying to make fun of her being the stallion, her having the nerve to say something about what happened to her. All of those things were made fun of by him. And there are a lot of people who come forward who have been abused, right? Not just women. Again, like I told you, anybody. And that same thing happens. Their abusers make fun of them, essentially, for even coming forward with it. They will literally ridicule them for it. They'll try to make them feel worse because at the end of the day, you're bringing to light something that they did that they wanted to stay buried. They didn't want you to say anything about it. So if you actually have the nerve to say something about it, well, now I'm going to make you feel like crap for it because I didn't want you to do that in the first place. And so a lot of that happens. I'm also going to try to get you to question why you did it. So hopefully you could take it back. You know what I mean? Because maybe I can get you to reconsider, you know what I'm saying? And you will think like, did this really happen? Or even if it did happen, do I want to keep getting treated like this? Maybe not. And so a lot of people change their mind. And so like all of these things were taking place. But even in the midst of it, at the end of the day, yes, she had had that act with him, but she knew that if she admitted that she had did that with him, that's all everybody was going to see. Like that would be the only topic because it is what a lot of people brought up. You know what I mean? Like to this day, there are a lot of people that are like, I mean, yeah, maybe that did happen, but she slept with him though. So I guess like as if that like justifies like everybody that we slept with means that that's somebody that should cause harm to you. Like, does that actually like justify whether or not they should do something to literally mistreat you. Like, I don't think that it should, like, that part should be negated. But like, and if somebody comes out and says something that doesn't necessarily line up, there's a lot of reasons why a lot of survivors come across like they are liars, because sometimes they really do, in an effort to protect themselves and not be seen as one thing, they will omit something. But there are a lot of people out here who don't necessarily remember everything because they're so messed up by the event that occurred. They're so messed up by what happened. They don't remember everything perfectly. And then as soon as they do remember something, what is the first thing people say? You're a liar. And it's like, I'm a liar because I just remembered what it was. I didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't know at the time. And the memory came back to me, and I'm sharing it with you now, but it shoots down all my credibility just because I didn't happen to know this thing from the very beginning. And so like that definitely happened with her, but I do feel like, yeah, it made a lot of individuals like not sensitive to her situation. And they made a lot of people like not receptive at all to like what had happened. And like, because of the fact that you wanted to omit that for whatever reason you did it for, the fact that you lied about it, period, means that I don't really need to support you on that. And like, you lied too much. And so maybe there was more to it or like something else. But like I said, I just feel like I don't think people ask for things like this to happen. That's all I want to make sure it gets said. And like, whenever a person gets hurt in any way that they get hurt, I don't think they want it. And I think that no matter what they did with the person, I don't think that means that they deserve it, you know? And so like, I think that documentary really helped to bring that point home, you know, to make that super clear. And it's what I always love about depictions like that, or any illustrations of those things, that, you know, at the end of the day, that's what I feel like matters, right? Whether we separate it or not, that's the part that I feel like sticks out to me. But I know that there's probably other individuals that feel, you know, differently about it, and that like, that may be true, but I can't separate that from this thing. I get it. But I just think that if we are able to if we really want to extract all those things, and at the end of the day, look at, you know, violence in its purest form and like, you know, how it occurs, I don't think there's nothing that's going to help convince me that violence against anybody should be taking place. And that, you know, and in this case, that violence against women should be occurring either. There was actually, for those who don't know, but on November 25th was the day of the elimination of violence against women. It's a movement that was started by the United Nations, and it's literally because 1 in 3 women, approximately, have actually faced some kind of violence in their life. You know what I mean? Whether it be physical, sexual, from a partner, or from a non-partner. That's too many. That's way too many. And it's about 1 in 4 adolescent girls who are also like facing, you know, some kind of violence as well. And it's just that's too high of a number, you know, for any of them to like be experiencing. And it's enough that, yes, we have formulated movements around it, because women aren't always protected, unfortunately, you know what I'm saying, in our world. And they're not always regarded highly enough, you know, and held in enough, with enough support, but again, with enough around them to be able to help them out. And again, I feel this way about every gender, but I just know that it does occur in high numbers to women. And what ultimately happens, right, is that we have lost too many people to violence as well, who have been killed ultimately because of violence that has occurred. And in this case, had the bullet gotten anywhere else, we could have been talking about a very different story. We might have been talking about her in the past tense. And I feel like that is always going to be significant. And there's nothing about her lifestyle that's going to make me forget that part, that she could have also not been here, you know. And that, what about the women that aren't? And what about, again, and not just women, but again, anybody that has been killed or like because of violence? What about those people that are not here? And we are talking about them, you know, having to talk about them because they can no longer speak for themselves. That's always going to be the thing that I want to make sure that, you know, focus is brought on, that awareness is built around, and it's, you know, it's literally the foundation, right? Of like, you know, like how I like to show up, like I said, with my mental health initiatives, and definitely the conversations that are built here. So I think it was great, but I'm open, right, to like other opinions and to other, you know, feelings. And so like, hey, y'all heard the episode and you think differently, that's okay. Like I said, let me know, right? Because maybe you think differently, but I'm glad that like it gave us another opportunity to have more conversation around it, right? And either way, if it's formulating thought around it, then I feel like it's already doing its job. And it's good that we can continue to think about these things more deeply. But of course, as a result, I want to keep having, more conversations around these kind of things. And like I said, I do want to keep building education and awareness around it. And I'm hoping that we can end the year with a couple guests that are going to tell us about some lessons that they have, like things that they've learned, right? And like last year, we ended, if y'all remember, we ended the series, the end of the year with the series called, like sharing your gifts. And so it was literally like instead of opening gifts like we do around the holidays, it was about, what gifts do you have that you can share with the world. And this year I also want to, still with the in the process of gifts and like unwrapping things, I want to have a series on unwrapping lessons. So like what are the lessons that you have been that you have unwrapped, right? That like were gifts to you. Some of them were gifts, some of them we wish we can return to sender, right? Like some of them we didn't want to have, but what were those and what it is. And so I do have a few people in mind for that. But again, if there's any of these things that connect with you and that you want to learn more about, or that you're like, man, I really have something to tell you about it, please know that my door is open. I am, and my ears are, ready to listen and take that in. And so, if you do want to connect with me, you can find me on most platforms. I am Santana Says with one underscore. That's on Instagram and TikTok. YouTube, there's Santana Says. You can find us there if you're not already doing it. If you are following us on audio, I love it. I appreciate that you are already supporting us in that way. But if you also want to send me an email or some kind of correspondence, the email is Santana Says podcast at gmail.com. So that's Santana Says podcast at gmail.com. And so I would love to hear from you, and know those things. But like I said, and keep building all these things and developing on further. So thank you as always for supporting. And whenever we're going to have our Feel Good Fridays, we're going to keep doing it, keep rolling it, keep exploring things and, continue on our path towards life on the other side.